Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from the Govardhan Eco Village in beautiful Maharashtra, India. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to India. How are you?
How am I?
How are you?
I've been in India for a while now.
How are you?
I was in India
I just
before
want
you.
to know how you are.
I'm doing good.
I'm doing good too. I got another great Ayurvedic treatment. I feel
Oh, yeah.
slippery and moist and
Very good.
hydrated.
In a good way?
In a wonderful way.
Okay,
In a
good.
wonderful way. And yeah, the training's going good. People are in good spirits. We had cartel classes today. Everyone learned how to play the cartels.
Very nice.
Keep your rhythm.
Hand symbols.
Yeah, that little hand cymbals. They're an instrument.
They are. They're
You know,
not
yoga
just like a
teachers in
plaything.
America, they treat them like I joke around because they always have them in yoga studios, and they use them as sort of like chimes. When people are in shavasana, they say, "Bing." Notice your breath. Bing. Come back into your body. But it's like a real instrument. It's like a violin or a cello. There's ways to play these things, and we got some really good.
I don't know if it's quite a violin or cello.
Come on, man. Are you kidding? You ever see Maya Pureshwari play those?
Yeah.
She makes those things sing. It's very
Yeah.
impressive.
No, it is. It is.
It is. So, and tomorrow, the 300 start harmonium. It's exciting. Bought 31 harmoniums.
Amazing.
I know. It's just sort of, because I'm a harmonium lover myself, just to be at the shop and get to play them all was quite like,
They must love you when you walk in.
when I come in there with my sapphire chase card, they love it. Yeah, it's beautiful. They're like old families of harmonium makers. It's very cool.
There also must have been like at least 6 salespeople standing around.
6,
Well,
and they're all great.
Yeah.
I knew, they were just watching me try them out, and I was like, "Say, okay, you play," and they just play so beautifully to hear these guys play. Harmonium shop, Indian musical stores. It's completely different than American music stores.
They got attitudes in American music stores.
You know why? And I can say this because I was a musician. Everyone wants to be in a band, and instead they're working in the music store, and they're they got so if you come in looking for stuff, they're just sort of like give you, right, Seth? Don't they give you attitude in those music stores? Seth knows, he's a musician. Musicians are like little Lord Brahmas. They create their own little universe around them. It can be tough karma to deal with. Musicians' karma.
Okay.
You had enough of that? Okay.
Well, no, I mean,
He put
I
my
can see you're ready
banter
to go
on hold.
anywhere.
That's
this
okay.
morning. See, you're ready to go.
Talking.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
How about announcements?
Mara, announcements, please.
We have a Bhakti recovery group meeting at 1 p.m. today, Eastern time. There's also a asana class with Josh Kane for our Patreon members at, 10:30 this morning, 10 a.m. this morning. I think it's 10 a.m. Sorry, I just spaced on it. But the usual time on Friday. And tomorrow's show, instead of being at 8 a.m., will be at this time at 7:30 a.m. Eastern time.
Alrighty.
All right.
It's Q&A day tomorrow, right?
That's right.
All right, we're gonna do live Q&A. Means all the people that are with us live, they get to ask questions live. They come on the show, they grab the microphone, they ask their questions. We try our best to answer it. They get famous. All righty, we have a great sort of like a deep email someone wrote in. We thought was important to read. You want to share something?
I want to share, the theme in this email. I was really moved by this email. We get emails every day from listeners, from others. We really appreciate them. We plan to get much better at responding to them.
We're going to get much better at responding.
We're very disorganized, but we really are. We read them all, and we're very happy to receive emails or letters or messages when people send them in. But yesterday or day before, we received one that was really very moving. It's anonymous. And we're not going to read the whole thing. It was very long. But why don't I give a little background and you can read a portion of it and then we can discuss it.
Sure.
But the theme in it has to do with something that I think a lot of people really struggle with. And that is that, somehow, I suppose it's through our dealings with each other, whether it be within families, coming from parents to children, or in the way that we're schooled, or, the environments where we work, or whatever it may be. So many of us, or it probably has a lot to do with social media and other forms of media as well, but so many people struggle with feelings of unworthiness. And that can also be a huge obstacle to one's spiritual practice as well. So we received an email from a lady. She was about 30 years old, and she told a bit of her history, and you could see that she had a very lot of challenges placed in her life, even from a very young age. So she was brought up as a Mormon, and apparently she was married at a very young age, because what she reveals is that by the time she was 17, she was divorced with a daughter. And
by the time she was 17,
by the time she was 17 years old,
she was divorced with a daughter.
Yeah.
So she could have been married when she was
16 or
16.
younger. Yeah. And, it appears that was an abusive relationship that she had to get out of. And then, so here she is, a very young lady. She has a daughter. She's struggling with OCD, right? What is that? Obsessive compulsive disorder.
I got that.
Yeah. Okay.
Check.
Okay. And PTSD. And, and struggling in more ways, struggling with suicidal thoughts, struggling, I believe there are addiction issues there. And I was piecing it together. She didn't give an exact timeline, but through reading, she was giving a lot of information. But apparently she was married remarried shortly after that, and apparently that was also an abusive relationship where she had 3 more daughters. So now she's 25 years old with 4 daughters, divorced for a second time, and struggling again in the same way. Somehow through all of that, she became interested in Eastern thought. I think through hearing from Deepak Chopra.
Okay.
And she so she started getting into that, and then she was a regular Joe Rogan listener. And she
Deepak Chopra, Joe Rogan, they go hand in hand.
Well, they do. But through Joe Rogan, she saw one episode that said Joe Rogan and guests discuss Bhagavad Gita. So that Bhagavad Gita caught her attention, and so she listened to it, and then of course that was you on the show, and through that she started to listen to the podcast. So she's been listening to the podcast religiously since then. But she mentioned because of my OCD, I can't jump around. I have to listen to them beginning, from episode 1 and work my way through.
Right.
So she's up to about like episode 130 or something now. But she shared a lot about how the podcast had really changed her life in a very profound way, and how hearing Srimad Bhagavatam was a real game changer in her life, and it helped her pull herself out of so much of the issues that she was dealing with and the struggles that she was having. But she mentions that in order to survive, that she became an exotic dancer, or she says like a male entertainer, right? And through that, she was also able to, by the money she was able to earn through that, she was also able to go to college, and she's gotten a college degree, and I think she's continuing her studies now. And it's through that. Well, I think you could read it now. I think I've kind of brought us up to the point where you can pick up. You have that letter open?
Sure.
Yep.
All right. So she was an exotic dancer. So
Yeah.
what is that? That means like
Like a stripper, you
a
know.
stripper.
Like you see,
Okay.
it's-
All right. I'm now currently listening to podcast episode 161. I know you guys are currently on episode 900 something, but my OCD keeps me from skipping any episode. And I currently am listening to multiple episodes each day to catch up. That's beautiful. Binge listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
I want to pick up every grain of knowledge and fill my mind with this wisdom because I don't want to miss anything that'll seriously help me. In fact, I discovered this through episode 115, The Devotion of Prostitutes.
That's an
So that
interesting
was one of the old prostitutes, one of the old episodes that we did.
That was an episode.
You remember it?
I do. And that was an episode where that was in the first canto, and the chapter is Lord Krishna enters into Dwarka.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's describing how Krishna is coming back to the city on the western coasts of India, where that was really the city of his dynasty. And when he comes back, all the residents of the city are coming out to greet him. And one of the details that's mentioned there, maybe we can read it after, is that many prostitutes are coming out. And Srila Prabhupada writes about that in a way where one point, and maybe we'll read it later, but one point that he shares there is he says, to this day, in India, there are many prostitutes who are great devotees of Lord Krishna, right? And you remember how he described it?
They ended up there by some trick of fate or trick of chance.
He said by some trick of chance, they have fallen into this occupation, which to me sounds very much like our friend who's writing the letter, right? It's like life threw certain circumstances at her. She had to survive. She did what she could in order to, provide for her children and be able to go to school. And so by trick of chance, you end up in a position. But it doesn't mean, that the way that Prabhupada writes about it, and we discussed it in that episode,
now I want to go back and listen to that.
Yeah, it's I think we even discussed this not so long ago. We brought that up again, that trick of chance idea. But it's like, well,
I like that phrase, trick of chance.
I think it's a very good phrase. And why don't you keep reading and we'll discuss more on it.
Okay. Where are we here?
So she listened to
one of the main reasons I can survive in California as a single mother and a full-time student is because of my job as an exotic dancer or male entertainer. I've cracked up so many times listening to you guys speak of gentlemen's clubs. It's interesting because we joke how it's
really not for gentlemen.
They're not for gentlemen whatsoever. It's interesting to think who you have in your diverse audiences. When I started on my spiritual path again and became serious about quitting bad habits and thoughts, I was seriously worried about this job. I do it as professionally as possible, but I still feel dirty, like a sinner, and like my worth is less. It wasn't until I heard episode 115 that I finally and completely felt like a respectable human being worthy of love, worthy of Krishna. Raghu and Kastuba, I have never felt worthy my entire life. Even when I felt Krishna in my heart at 17, and even when I graduated college at 25, it wasn't until I heard this episode at 30 that I finally made peace with myself. Words and tears are not enough to express my genuine gratitude for this. Thank you for saving my life and helping me feel whole again. I plan to listen to every podcast until I catch up with the live ones and can finally be current. I'm not going anywhere as an other. If you're unfamiliar with others, those are people that aren't on Zoom, but they're out there listening to the podcast. And oftentimes we've never have met them. And I really hope to be in live audience one day, despite the time differences. I've become so attached to being part of the podcast's growth. I feel that because I feel that because I've listened to every episode, I have a much deep bond with you. I laugh with you, cry with you, rejoice, and feel sad with you. And I have started chanting japa daily now and notice a tangible, empirical difference in my state of existence. That's nice, especially saying something like as sort of metaphysical as japa or sound meditation. You're noticing an empirical difference. Okay. I want to thank you for taking the knowledge that I've been slowly receiving and presenting it in a reliable, consistent, and tested body of knowledge in the Bhagavatam. Thank you for saving my life and consequently the lives of my children and all those around me. I have no doubt that I will commit the rest of my life to studying the Bhagavatam, practicing bhakti yoga, being a practicing bhakti yogi, and spreading this knowledge in an accessible way. This is just the beginning.
What a nice message.
Wow,
Huh?
that's a beautiful. Yeah, it truly is the highest welfare work, is giving wisdom, because it gives direction, and the world is ridiculously confusing.
Yeah.
Ridiculously confusing. And to try to understand it in a very non-sectarian. Really, that's what I felt. That's why I fell in love with India and Indian culture. It's actually non-sectarian. It sees us all as spiritual beings. You can't quit you can't convert somebody to being a spiritual being. They are a spiritual being. They just forgot. And so this whole process that when that's been called yoga in the East, which we just know as a physical exercise, is an uncovering of what we actually are. It's to finally be authentic again, finally being sincere again, finally not just trying to impress people with some bravado or persona or external sense of self. It's stripping away these layers. I was talking to Jiva G. They use these in the 12-step too. They say it's like peeling an onion. It's like there's layers and layers of costumes we wear at different seasons of our life, different ages, or in our teenage years, in our 20s and our 30s. And they're not us. It's just how we want to present, how we can, because we think if I act this way, then I'll find love. Then I'll be loved. And that's all the Jiva wants, and is desperately, if not pathetically at times, trying to find love in a temporary world. And we say, hey, that love can be had, but it's got to be seen in the bigger picture. We have to reconnect our original love first, our love with a capital L. And I want to thank her, Ms. Anonymous, for writing this, because it was very, very vulnerable, to share this type of stuff. And I think it gives a lot of, when you share these things, it allows other people to be vulnerable, and you'll be surprised about how many other people were struggling with so-called sinful behavior. Let's face it, any activity that takes us off track or takes us moving in a way that's sort of hurting us, or we would say crippling, but we don't like that word anymore. What do we say?
I don't know.
Remember we were saying we don't use like this word sinful, because it brings in this thing like there's a higher power that's judging us.
Yeah.
Krishna is not judging us. Krishna is loving us. Krishna is a cowherd boy. He's adorable. He's charming. He's not, we say, he's not Judge Judy. He's not like criticizing us or wants to see us burn. He's not sadistic. He's a God of love. Therefore, when we act inappropriately or act out of wisdom, there's some natural pain that goes with that. And that's why the teachings are here, so we don't get in painful situations.
Yeah. There's so much in our class earlier today, in our philosophy class, we're talking about the difference between religion and spirituality. And, religion, you could just go right down a list of what religion consists of. It consists of, having some kind of confession of faith, and it involves generally like some system of churches or temples, and it involves some kind of ordained clergy, and it involves certain rules and regulation. There's a whole list of things, but those are all meant for purpose, right? They're meant to give us some structures by which we can more deeply realize our own spiritual nature. But often those very structures become destructive.
Sure.
They actually for instance, make us feel unworthy.
Sure.
Make us. Now, here's the spiritual vision says that we're all sparks of spiritual energy moving through so many different bodies and so many different circumstances for we don't know how long, for some practically incalculable amount of time. So, everyone can think that it would be most likely that I have been man, I have been woman, I have been black, I have been white, I have been animal, I have been plant. I've gone through all these different types of bodies and all these different kind of circumstances, right? I've been sinner, I've been saint.
You're singing a song now, aren't you?
Am
Isn't
I?
that a song? I'm a sinner, something.
But I've been a prostitute, I've been a priest, I've been all these different things. Was that part of the song too?
Yeah, yes.
Is it? Really?
What is that song? Come on, Mara. Walter.
But in any case, so if a deeply spiritual person, a person that is quote unquote religious, you got this song?
Yeah, I don't know. No.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry about that.
But like a person that is quote unquote religious looks at someone that doesn't fit in nicely with those rules and then judges them. And really, where is that coming from? It's coming from the need to feel themselves as being more pure or holy or religious. Whereas a person that's more deeply spiritual, they look at the same person, they say, okay, they're going through, look at the circumstances they're going through. There's an explanation for why they may be there. And it's not that we don't have some free will to respond differently, but the fact is so many of us, if we were put in the position of the young lady that wrote to us, who knows where we'd be or the things that we would have done to survive. She's made choices that she feels she's had to make in order to survive, in order to care for a family. But all along, she's working hard. She's getting, she's getting her degrees in school, and she's practicing her spiritual practices with, great sincerity. And it's not so much what we've done. The concept in this
So you're on
Bhakti
to a
yoga.
good one right now. You're on
Yeah.
to a really good takeaway.
Okay. You think you know where I'm going? So it's not so much our quote unquote sins, right, that are problematic, but it's really hypocrisy that's problematic, right? This is what's defined as the real issue, right? If I'm hypocritical, if I'm looking down my nose at someone else, and I may not even understand what they've been through, what they're going through, that's a real disqualification for going deeper spiritually. Whereas I may be in so many difficult circumstances and having to respond in so many ways that externally seems so disadvantageous or quote unquote sinful or wrong, whatever it may be. But if I'm sincere and unhypocritical, well, then that's like a conduit, for spiritual understanding. That's like you could be in a very good place there.
Sure. It's not what she's done. That's what you started. It's not what she's done, but it's what she does with what she's done.
Yeah, sure.
And from that past, she could have created a Frankenstein. And instead, she's using that very, very dark space and very dark place, that hitting the bottom to spring off the bottom and go so much higher. Yeah. And in that, you get really inspired. You get inspired. We don't get inspired when someone so much, everything's very wrinkle free in their life and things work out great and they're still doing great. We get inspired when someone is hit like the real lowest of low and they've climbed out of a well and they've like done something and they're setting an example and they've overcome incredible odds that were, against them. And now they're shining and they're leading. This is like an inspirational thing. This is why, we're a little touch moved and inspired here.
Now, here is what Prabhupada wrote. This is what we were speaking on that day that moved her so much.
Can I pause you a second before you get into that? Because I wanted to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you what you think about this, because you were saying, okay, there are these religious institutions, and these religious institutions are originally meant to assist us and guide us, but sometimes they just screw us up even more. What do we do with that? Are we supposed to just abandon religious institutions, whether it's a church, a synagogue, ashrams, because there is so much room for whatever dogma, corruption, abuse, people perpetuating some feeling of unworthiness? Should we just find our spiritual path privately?
Well, everybody's a little different, so we have to, it's kind of like, that's the in my opinion, the question that you're asking, it's not like yes or no. Yes, we should abandon it. It's kind of like fine tuning, right? We need to tune in. We need as much structure as is serving the higher purpose. We need to let go of the structure to the degree that it's not serving the purpose. And that's why, in my opinion, I found that, like, a lot of the people that I really admire, a lot of the people that I think are really tuned in spiritually, really honest, non-pretentious, really getting traction in their own spiritual transformation, a lot of times they lie on the edges of the institutions, right?
They lie on the edge.
They're in the institution, but they're also not understood within the institution fully. They're not fighting against an institution, or kind of like, thumb in their nose at the institution.
But they're not enmeshed in it, perhaps.
Yeah, they're not enmeshed in it. They're not confused by it. They're working to improve it to the extent that they can, but they're not burning themselves out trying to do that. They're making sure they're getting in, so that's what I see. The institutions that we have are meant to serve purposes. We need to understand what those purposes are. There's a term for a particular type of Vaishnava, or said that a Vaishnava should be, the term a Vaishnava, meaning like a bhakti yogi, should be saragrahi.
Saragrahi.
Yeah, which means they're seeking the essence, right? It's not the superficial that they're concerned with. The superficial is meant to serve getting deeper into the essence. To the extent that it serves it, we accept it. To the extent that it hinders, we let it go. And particularly when it comes to people getting hurt, when we see people getting hurt, damaged by it in some way, then it's clearly not serving its purpose. We need to sometimes there are old traditions,
right,
that people are hanging on to because they feel the religious thing to do, the right thing to do, is to maintain the tradition.
Right.
But as times change and as circumstances change, sometimes those traditions need to be adapted so that they actually serve the traditional purpose. And that becomes so tricky in institutions, because the people that may be less deep, they see it as heresy or something,
right.
And then, there's battles over that kind of thing. There's so many tensions. It's such a difficult world.
What are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
I can appreciate institutions. If it wasn't for institutions, I'd be wandering around the streets of New York. At the same time, I see all the problems as well. I've for the last 25 years have lived outside any.
Well, I'd say you're on the edge.
Whatsoever.
That's the way I see you.
Huh?
I see you as a person that's on the edge.
Oh, that was me you're talking about?
Well, not only you, but yeah, I think I see you that way.
I'm on the edge.
All right, so here's the verse that we read on that show, and then a portion of the commentary from. So the verse is, it's describing all the different types of people that are coming out and greeting Krishna in Dwarka, and it says, at the same time, many hundreds of well-known prostitutes began to proceed on various vehicles. They were all very eager to meet the Lord, and their beautiful faces were decorated with dazzling earrings.
This is the one where I couldn't stop laughing, remember?
You lost it because of the vehicles or something. Like, what kind of vehicles are they doing?
I just started laughing.
So they were all very eager to meet the Lord. That right there is the definition of spiritual health, right? Like when one is not eager for the material things of this world, but when one is eager to see the Lord. So they were all very eager to meet the Lord, and their beautiful faces were decorated with dazzling earrings, which enhanced the beauty of their foreheads. So then in the commentary, Prabhupada writes, even to date, right? Not only back then, thousands of years ago, but even today, right now.
Even today.
You can walk into the brothels of India, right? Even to this day, there are many prostitutes in the great cities of India who are sincere devotees of the Lord. By tricks of chance, one may be obliged to adopt a profession which is not very adorable in society, but that does not hamper one in executing devotional service to the Lord.
Wow.
Devotional service to the Lord is uncheckable in all circumstances. No matter what crazy situation you may find yourself in, tricks of chance may place you in, if you're sincere in your heart and you want to serve, you serve, even if you wish you could serve and you can't. That right there is the real stuff, you know.
Wow. That is
Nice.
beautiful.
Yeah, I always like that one. And I think that this, here we're hearing about prostitution. I remember a couple years back we got a letter from someone. It was so sincere, and it was from a man who worked. I think he was like a bouncer in a strip club,
Oh, yeah.
and his wife was like a sex worker online,
Yes.
and they had a daughter together, and he's trying to practice bhakti yoga, right?
Right.
He's trying to be a good yogi.
Yeah. Right.
And he was writing like, how do I understand this? What do I do? I want my daughter to be raised well. I want her to get the right impressions in life, the right samskars in life. At the same time, I'm working in such a crazy world. And then,
I wonder
I don't
how
think
he
it was really his
is.
wife. I think it's
We
the
should
mother of
write
his
him.
daughter.
Find that email. Check up on him.
Yeah, that would be interesting, right? But the sincerity in what he was expressing himself was touching.
Yeah.
When we get to this idea, you find it there in the Bible, right? You find like Jesus, is like, there was such a tension going. If you read the New Testament in the Bible, there's like all this tension going on because there are these Pharisees who were like rigid religious priests who just understood the rules and weren't very deep in it. And then Jesus was like kind of like breaking all that down and getting to the essence of it. Jesus sees the prostitute, and he sees the devotion in the prostitute, and all the Pharisees are looking and saying, everybody's following this guy like he's some new big rabbi. Look at him, he's associating with prostitutes, right? Meanwhile, Jesus was looking at the churches and seeing like all the hypocrisy that was going on there and like rebelling against that. So it's just, this is the nature of the world that we work in, that we live in. It's one has to it takes a lot of sincerity, and it takes an effort to try to see past the superficial and see the real essence of what spirituality is, and to try to be to try to have integrity, and to try to be honest with oneself and honest with others about where I'm at, who I am, not trying to put on airs, which serve no true spiritual purpose. Even we may try to justify it, well, I'm the priest, so I need to present myself this way if I'm going to help others, right? But it's like, it doesn't work. It's what works is truth. What works is honesty. And so the Saragrahi Vaishnava is always trying to get to that essence, that essential truth. Anyway, thank you so much for writing that letter. It really meant a lot to us.
Yeah,
I don't know if she's listening because she's not going in order, but
she's going in order. So,
but when you get there,
we're here for you. We're looking
or maybe
forward
we can
to
send her a
seeing
link
you
to this
live.
Thank you so much.
All right, you want to start the Bhagavatam?
I'm ready.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tojayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta priyeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome in the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer obeisances at their lotus feet.
Reading from Canto 5, Chapter 1, Text 13.
All right. My dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, All living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future dangers, and happiness and distress.
He's making an argument. So this is Lord Brahma speaking again, right? He's speaking to Priyavrata, who's like a yogi, but born in a dynasty of rulers, and saying, "Hey, the time is, it's great what you've been doing. Sitting, in your seclusion, doing your meditation. I know you're going deep. I know you're sincere, but you're needed right now, right?" And the way that I understand this, let's read this again. He's saying that all living entities accept different types of bodies. And when he says bodies here, I think what he means is not just the physical body, but the mind as well, right?
Yeah.
We all have a certain aptitudes, and we all have certain dispositions,
Yeah.
natural inclinations.
Your fears, you have some anxiety, you suffer from happiness and distress, and you lament. Yeah, it's like a mental.
Yeah, that we're based on our karma, based on our previous actions, we're born in certain circumstances. And and I think his message here is that we should respond accordingly. Like imagine if there's a big parking lot, like a huge parking lot, and like that had like thousands of all different varieties of vehicles there. And then like thousands of people walked into the parking lot and they were all allotted a car based on their previous behavior, right? So
Oh,
you might get a good one. So we might want a certain one. It's kind of according to our desires, but also according to like the how virtuous we were, right? So like like you like trucks, right?
yes, I do.
Okay. So your desire is to have a truck, but according to your virtue, you might get one type of vehicle, or you might get the truck of your dreams, like that. What did you call that Ford Econoline 150, whatever it was you liked?
The F-150 Lightning.
Yes, that's the one.
With the stripe. No, that's the Raptor.
Yeah. So like if your
The Shelby, the Shelby.
if your karma is really good, if your virtue is really high from the past, you're going to get exactly that truck, like exactly the one that you desire. And if it was less high, you're going to get something else. And then that's what you've got, right? And like Mara, she might want like another car, like she's got a certain desire. And like sometimes ladies like to drive those VW bugs, right? You've seen like that. It's usually like girls.
All ladies like to drive
that's kind of like
those,
that's kind of like a young lady's
Not
like
a
first
generalization
car.
is that.
It's kind of like a young lady's first car, right? Like, oh, I want one of those. It's like they like the style or something like that, right? Generally, guys aren't too interested in that, right?
Yeah.
True.
Not.
Okay. So, but you walk into that lot and you get the car that you've been allotted, and kind of the argument being placed is here, and then you act accordingly. Like, say it became time to plow the streets because of the snow. We're going to turn to the person with the truck and say, and you may say, well, I'm not interested in plowing snow. Well, you were allotted the truck, that can put the plow on it. We need you. So like you, and I think this kind of argument goes against our American independent thinking. Like if someone would have told me when I was 17 years old,
you've got duties.
You've got duties to do. Yeah.
You're expected to this. We expect this from you. And
yeah, exactly.
You've got, some debts to pay. And
yeah, you got debts to society. I'd be like, no, I'm going to find my own way in life.
Right.
Don't tell me what to do. As an older person that's lived through, a long stint as a monk who's practiced yoga, who's witnessed who's grown up, hopefully matured a bit and so on. I do see it in a different way now. I do see the merit in trying to understand how I'm meant to respond to the circumstance that I found myself in, not according to my whim, but according to the broader need. And so this is saying we're all born in different bodies. We're all born with different inclinations, different psychologies. You've got what it takes to do what's needed here, and it's the right thing to do. And I think he's going to continue with that line of thinking here in the next verses.
Text 14, my dear boy, all of us are bound by the Vedic injunctions to the divisions of Varnashram according to our qualities and work. These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of Varnashram Dharma, like bulls obliged to move according to the direction of a driver pulling ropes knotted to their noses.
Yeah, you've seen that before.
Yeah.
You can run it with like a bull or a buffalo. You can run a rope up one nostril and out the other nostril, right?
Yeah.
And once you got that, doesn't matter how strong that bull is. You pull on that, it's just got to go where it's being directed.
Yeah, it's like my dad used to pull me by my ear.
Yeah, so he's saying this is it's similar to a lot of what we hear in Bhagavad Gita, where like there's that verse in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita that, let me pull that up. But do you know the one that I'm speaking about?
No.
There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita. The third chapter of Bhagavad Gita is entitled Karma Yoga, right? And there's a famous verse that says, I'm about to find it. Almost there. Here we go. Even a person of knowledge, right? Even a wise person, even a person that's learned about how this world functions and so on. Even a person of knowledge acts according to their own nature. For everyone follows the nature they have acquired from the 3 modes. What can repression accomplish? Right. Now, I've heard that this verse, I believe, misapplied many times. Like it's kind of saying, like, if you feel like doing something, do it. What's repression going to accomplish?
A just do it t-shirt.
Yeah. But what it's really saying is quite the opposite in a sense. You know, what it's really saying is you have a certain nature, you have a certain psychology, recognize it, and then use it for its best purpose. And don't try to do something else, because ultimately that ultimately in one sense you are forced to act according to your psychology, right? So you may as well do it within the realm of dharma. And you know, there's other verses in the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, that say like it's better to fail at doing your own duty,
right,
than to succeed at doing someone else's duty, right?
Interesting concept.
Yeah. And the idea there is that, you know, these duties, the idea was like, let's recognize your psychology, let's recognize its weaknesses and its strengths, and let's design duties that bring out the best of you and kind of counter what's like some people, like we both know people.
I know where you're going with this.
Where do you think
we're going? We know both people who are extremely violent.
Yes,
right?
That's exactly. But like growing up, I
mean, we know other people. Why do we always focus on the violent people? What we know? Because we know intellectuals.
Okay, but
right? We know intellect. We know athletes.
We could go there too, but let's deal with the violent ones first.
Okay.
Okay, you want to talk? We all know business people, right? But
yes,
I grew up around violent people. I suppose that's why I'm bringing it up. You know, but you could say business people, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we all know people.
We all know violent business people.
But let's say business people. Probably most of us have some experience of knowing people that know how to make money. Right, that they just have the knack for it. Yeah. Whereas like other people, like hopeless, right? It's just like
they give money, they lose all the money.
They try to start a business, they don't have a clue what they're doing. And other people just like they can start a business, they can make $1 million out of nothing, they could lose it all, they can turn around and do it again.
Yeah,
you know, they got the drive, they got the aptitude, they got the know-how, they can just they see it. You know, so that's a valuable asset. That's not only valuable for the individual, that's a valuable asset for it can be a valuable asset for society, right? But what's going to be that person's likely, if someone has that strength, if they psychologically, if they have that aptitude, then they also may likely have something negative that goes with it. There's a negative potential within that.
Sure.
And what would you think that would be?
They get caught up in greed and power trips and, you know, misspending.
I think especially greed, right? Let's wrap it all under the word greed, right? Okay. That people that we I sometimes, like when I'm in India and I associate with someone like our friend Gurunga Prabhu, it's like
Yeah.
he's the kind of person that's working on a level that like he'll sit down at a table with billionaires.
Let's get him on the show.
I know
He's here.
he's not
Let's
easy to
just get him on the
show.
show.
Yeah, maybe
He's
he could be
such
a
a
Sunday.
powerful rising sun.
He's incredible.
know?
Yeah. So he'll sit down at a table with billionaires, right? Or I remember once he pointed, you see that table right there? Like right there.
I was with
that's-
you. He said that.
This
This table right here is
145
worth
billion.
like
Yeah.
$7 billion.
Yeah, right. So you put a group of billionaires at a table like that, and one is worth 7 billion, and one is worth 20 billion, and another's worth 30 billion, another's worth $50 billion, right?
Don't you feel like going up to that table and going, "Can I borrow $5?"
But
get out of here.
but it's likely that the person that's worth $7 billion
Yeah.
is feeling inadequate at that table.
You think?
Definitely, because they compete intensely, right?
Okay.
There's ego trips going on at that table potentially. There's one person looking down the other, and so now you have a person that's like has more money because of their powerful psychology and aptitude. They have more money than they even know how to spend. Their mind could. Well, let's go to the negative first. So now they're thinking, I need to compete. I need to make more. When I sit down this table next year, I want to be on top.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do that, I'm insensitive to, for instance, the experience of my workers, right? Like maybe I'm what do they call it when you trim down the whole thing? Like you fire a lot of people.
Downsize.
Maybe I'm downsizing, right? And I just don't care about. I could easily maintain those people, but I'm going to downsize and whatever happens, or I'm going to keep keep the pay of my workers at its minimum. I could easily provide for them happy, comfortable lives. I've chosen not to because I'm trying to increase the profit margin, right? Now that's a lot of what like our world looks like right now. There are exceptions for sure, but like there's a lot of that. But this was speaking of Varnashram Dharma. What Varnashram Dharma means is let's recognize your strengths. You know how to make money. You can produce. You have the potential to care for large numbers of people, right? And provide opportunities for them so that they can care for their families and care for. You have the opportunity to care for society. You could become the most generous member in society and provide for all those who don't have, safety nets and that need help. But somehow you've become convinced that success means making more money. You need someone to sit down, a wise person to sit down with you and convince you that success means caring for others, and that the more people that you care for, the more successful you are, and you feel joy in that, and maybe even prestige. If you need prestige, let's let your prestige work for the good of society.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. That may be in you. That may be part of your something that has to be gradually. Yeah. Something that has to be gradually rooted out. Okay. Well, if prestige is part of what you're looking for, let's redefine what is worthy of prestige,
Sure.
and that's how well you care for others. So it's recognizing one's strength and one's weaknesses. Now, if that's my psychology, then if I enter into it with the idea like, okay, it's already clear what my weaknesses are, it's already clear what my strengths are, and what's the remedy for that greed? Charity, right? That it's like we already know what the remedy for my malady is. So it's better even if I fail at that, it's better that I'm working in such a way that's recognizing my strengths and counteracting my problem. Then I take on another duty that's not counteracting my problem, even if I'm successful at it. Right? You're meant to become transformed by these duties, and that's why I like to say that duty is actually the first step in mastering the mind. That it's the first step in yoga, because our mind is telling us to do anything whimsical, and duty means, just like we read from the person that was that wrote to us today, right? She's got kids. That's her duty. She's not always doing what she wants to do, but she's doing what she has to do.
How did we get onto this subject? We were talking about Gurunga.
I was saying that he sits down with billionaires.
Okay.
You know, yeah,
And we know billionaires, or we know violent
a
people.
little bit.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. All right.
Okay.
Where are we at? 15. Let's read one more. My dear Priyavrata, according to our association with the different modes of material nature, right? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas,
Mhm.
the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives us our specific bodies and the happiness and distress we achieve. One must therefore remain situated as he is and be conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead exactly as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes with which to see.
Okay. Yeah.
Keep going.
If you like, got a couple more
Right,
minutes.
that's right. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body. Okay.
In other words, I'm all those duties are meant for people that aren't liberated, right? They're meant as medicine for our attachments, right? They're meant to help us counteract our attachments. But here he's saying even a liberated person, they accept the duties that are according to their mind or body.
Okay. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma, and the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three gunas, the three modes of material nature.
Okay. So in other words, you go to sleep and you dream, and all kind of you wake up and you have memories of those dreams. You maintain the memories, but you're disassociated with them, right? Like whatever was going on in my dream, I remember it, but I don't.
Be it a nightmare or some fantasy,
Yeah.
wonderful fantasy, it's over.
It's over, and it has really nothing to do with me.
It's got nothing to do with your present reality.
Yeah, but
And
even though the memories are maintained, so here it's saying that a person, again, all this is in the context of can we be in the world and not of it.
Mm.
So he's saying that we're born with a psychology, we're born with duties. We get in there and we do what we have to do in this world. We maintain that, but all along we know, in one sense, it's like a dream. You know, like
Right.
in one sense, this isn't who I am. I'm that spark of spiritual energy that's eternal. This is all temporary and in a sense illusory or dreamlike. I maintain it, but I also, even while I'm in it, I'm detached from it. It's the same way that a waking person is detached from the memories from the dream. Nice point, huh? All right. Maybe we end there today.
You have any wise info to take away with us? Some little goody nuggets?
I got some good stuff. Strip away the layers of costumes.
All right.
Reconnect to capital L love.
Did we talk about that today? Capital L love?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it. Okay.
Our sins aren't a disqualification, but hypocrisy is.
There we go.
It's not what she's done, but what she does with what she's done.
That's beautiful. That's a t-shirt.
It
There
sounded
you go.
better when you said it. than when I said it.
I didn't say she.
You
It's
did.
not
It was
I did?
referring to the letter. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not what she's done, but what she's
What she does. with
what she
she's done.
does.
Yeah. Anyway, spring off your rock bottom. That's a t-shirt.
Spring off your rock bottom. Okay.
Seek the essence.
Yeah, that's a mug.
Tattoo. See past the superficial.
I wouldn't wear that, but I like it.
Devotional service is uncheckable.
Like it, wouldn't wear it, but
Jeez.
It's not all about wearing, Robin.
well, I'm just saying, we're looking for catchy things you could wear in a shirt.
Are we?
Is that all we're looking
Are we? Aren't we doing that? I'm sure. I thought we were starting a clothing brand. No.
Success means caring for others.
There you go.
That's sweet. I'd wear that shirt.
With a list.
Success means caring for others.
Let us be transformed by our duties.
In a world where you can be anything, be kind.
There you go.
And
I just made that one up.
no, you didn't. And Krishna is not Judge Judy.
Krishna is not Judge Judy.
Fact.
You've used that a few times. Krishna is not Judge Judy, and I would wear that shirt. How many people live even know who Judge Judy is? Okay. Walter, you know who Judge Judy is. Come on. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks, Live. Thanks for India, for just being India. We love being here. And thanks to everybody, all the others out there, those mysterious others lurking around, listening to the podcast. Write us. It was a very beautiful letter. I want to thank the person that wrote that letter today. And write us, wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. If you like what we're doing, then, if you have a question, you can send that in tomorrow, too. We have for question day. We try to answer all the questions. It's real. We go through all these. We are understaffed and overworked, but we love it. And if you like what we're doing, you can support us. It's a community-supported podcast through Patreon, patreon.com/wisdomofthesages. Thank you for everybody who contributes. It really makes a difference. We appreciate it. I wish we had more people so we could send out gifts and better thank yous. But anyway, thank you, everybody. It's nighttime now. We had a long day of yoga stuff. But it was so good to see everybody here on Zoom this morning. Reminds me of doing this back home. Now I'm lamenting for being home. I'm always lamenting, I want to go back to India. Now I'm like, just see, I can't be peaceful wherever I am. I'll be here now. That is a t-shirt, Mara.
I just made that up.
For Jim and Pam.
I can't hear you.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. It's a beautiful day for a beautiful day. Let the magic continue. Haribo!